Hello and welcome to From Nest to Wings, Ask Your Questions. This is your chance to get your questions asked and answered. All you have to do if you come up with a question is type it into the chat, and we have people working back behind the scenes helping us put those chat questions into an order and get them up so that we can ask them of our panelists. If for some reason you think of a question after this is all over, go to our website, nesttowings.org. Type in your question and we will get to it either in a future video or we will get back to you if you give us your email. We're happy to help in any way that we can. From Nest to Wings is clearly designed to help high school students and college students as you go through that transition. What happens in high school to make you more marketable to colleges, and what happens once you're in college to help you stay there and be the best you can be. We also want to make sure you understand when Nest to Wings talks college, we are talking four-year college, community college, and trade schools. So ask any of those questions that you have. Questions are welcome from students or parents. Let's start by introducing our panel so that you'll know exactly who is answering your questions. I'm going to start up here with Angie Bustillos, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to give a quick introduction so that you know why we invited them to be a part of this panel. Angie?
All right, hello everyone. My name is Angie Bustillos. I am a 2019 Veteran Scholar and I'm currently a sophomore at the University of Denver. I have been involved with Nest to Wings since high school and now in college, and it just has been a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Ashley, let's go with you next. Ashley Temm.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I am a student services coordinator at USC out here in California. I, in my role, service students in the admissions process, financial aid, and basically just general support in whatever they need. I'm also a board member from Nest to Wings.
Bobby Browning.
Hello all and welcome. My name is Bobby Browning. I'm a Senior Assistant Director of Admissions at Colorado State University. I've been working with students in Colorado and around the country at Colorado State for about 15 years. I've been working in higher education for about 30 years, spending 15 years at the University of Arizona in student services. And so thanks for being here, and I'm happy to chat with you all today.
Excellent. Barb Norrbom.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Barb Norrbom. I am a high school counselor with Silver Creek High School in Longmont, Colorado. And I've been a high school counselor for just over 20 years, and I am always super excited to be able to talk with students about their future planning. So I'm excited to be here. I'm also a part of the Nest to Wings board as well.
Excellent. And Sawyer.
Hi, everybody. Sawyer Earwood. I am an independent college counselor and also a high school college counselor virtually. I'm co-founder of Virtual College Counselors. I worked in admissions for a little over 4 years and did international recruitment, worked with undocumented students, worked a lot with first-generation students. I myself am first-generation, so that's a pretty important part of who I am and why I do this work. And really just have a good amount of experience kind of all over the board. So looking forward to answering some questions.
Excellent. So you can see why we're excited to have all of you join us today, because we have some great people here to help you take steps forward in what you see as being your future. So let's go ahead and get started with our first question. Do I have to know my major right when I enter college? Good question. Ashley, we're going to let you take this one first.
Great first question. And the answer is no. You do not have to know your major when you enter college. Part of the fun in college is taking classes and learning what you love, and also finding what career is right for you. Personally, when I enrolled in college, my major was psychology, and I had changed it, I think, maybe 2 or 3 more times before my graduation. But that's what was so much fun about it. I was able to see all the different classes, see what was best for me, and I was able now to experience different career fields that I wanted to go into. So long story short, no, you don't have to know. That's the part of college and having fun, is finding what's best for you.
I'm going to jump in here real quick too, because one of the other things I hear a lot of students saying is, I have to know what I want to be for the rest of my life when I cross the stage at graduation. No, you don't. Please, please, please don't limit yourself that way. I would guess that most of us on this panel have been someplace else before we got here. Don't tie yourself in like that. Get the first job, figure out what you like about that job, and then start looking for, hey, what's the next challenge I want? You don't have to know who you want to be now. Okay, next question. As a first-generation student, what is the most important thing for me to know about college? Sawyer, we're going to let you take that one.
Awesome. So great question. And you're actually already on a good start because probably the first and most important thing as a first-generation student is being willing and open to ask for help. I think that's something that is generally you should do in your life in general. But when you talk about first gen with college, I think what I see and what happened with myself and many of the people I know is a lot of people come into college from backgrounds where they have, office hours, right? Like it seems like such a normal concept for those living in like the education world. But a lot of people come from schools where office hours are not really like a thing. You don't really like become friends with your teachers or like, all these things you hear about these great college experiences. So I think the most important thing to know is kind of just being open and ready to ask questions, and also don't be so prideful that you're not going to like pick up a mentor along the way. There are people that really want to help you, and that can be hard sometimes depending on your background to accept that help or ask for help. But I think the sooner you break down that particular barrier, that's going to serve you more so than any one piece of like logistical advice I could give you about college.
Great.
Can I
Yeah, Barb, go.
jump in a little bit too? And just, I would heavily suggest that any student really, would check in with their high school counselor so that you can kind of familiarize yourself with timelines throughout the year for the application process, and just kind of get some big picture views and some also like a few how details fit into that. So your high school counselor is there to really help you with the process and to answer any questions. And sometimes you don't know what questions you should be asking. And we can usually get a sense of what you're looking for just by spending a few minutes with you. So don't hesitate to talk with your high school counselor.
Excellent. Next question. What out-of-school activities are admissions counselors looking for? Jobs, music classes, dance classes, art classes, or volunteer activities? Bobby, why don't you take that one?
Okay, our freshman class is about 5,000 students, so we probably receive about probably somewhere in that 30,000 applications. And activities for us is anything that you're doing while in high school. It could be inside high school activities. It could be working a part-time job. It could be volunteer. So there's not one activity that's better than another one. So we look at your almost like a resume of what you've been doing. We want to know what you've been doing during your time in high school and how many hours a week you've been doing. Maybe you've had some leadership opportunities. And so a lot of people get hung up on, well, maybe I'm working a part-time job. I don't have that time to get involved in high school. That's okay. Your part-time job is an activity. If you're taking care of younger siblings, that's an activity. And so, and just remember, activities are the icing on the cake. We want to see the activities. We want to know what you've been doing. But of course, academics and grades are important. So don't ever let your activities distract from your grades GPA. So just remember that. So we're not looking for a slew of activities. Maybe you're because you're working 20 hours a week, you only have time for a couple activities, but your 20-hour-a-week job is your activity.
Excellent. And it's important to remember that when you get to college too, it can be a whole lot more fun to do everything that's outside of class, but that isn't exactly why you're there. That's not why you're paying the money. That's not why you're in high school. So focus on the academics and the rest will follow. Time management is important in that. But anybody else on what activities?
Yeah, I was going to say I'll hop in really quick because this is a slight pet peeve of mine that I'm trying to push out into the world is that, you know, what out of school activities are admission counselors looking for? All of the above. Like anything that you do, that you invest time in, that you're passionate about, that helps you grow as a person or as an academic or as a professional, all of that stuff. If you started a blog about, you know, crocheting in your spare time, or if you recycle clothes, trying to be like kind of the whole green, eco-friendly clothing movement, and you put it on Etsy and resell them as stylish packages, literally anything. I think I speak for most admission counselors in the country in the sense that we want to see an authentic portrait of you. We want to know where you're spending that time and energy and what's important to you. And that doesn't mean like that you only put like a boys service club or an NHS or that you did soccer. Those are things that are awesome, and we're really excited to see those. But there's a lot more to you than just those like core extracurriculars that everybody knows about. So don't be shy. This is not the time to be bashful. You can brag about yourself and also do it in a respectful and humble way. So
one of the questions I do have, because somebody was asking this the other day, should they list every small activity they've done? So for example, if they had to turn in hours for a program, volunteer hours, should they list every single thing they did or only those things that they're passionate about? Bobby?
I see activities as everything that they've been involved in, you know, because we give them a sheet where they fill out from 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, things that they're involved in. So if they don't necessarily have to be passionate about it, but if they maybe conducted 20 hours of volunteer work with whatever, that would be an activity to list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Excellent. Let's move on to our next question. What kind of access do I have to various counseling services once I am in college? Ashley, why don't you take that one?
Yes, great question. There are plenty of resources for mental health and counseling once you are in college. And most institutions will have an on-campus counseling and psychological services department, or you can also be referred out. I've actually, in the pandemic, have started hearing that colleges have partnered with telehealth opportunities as well. So apps like Talkspace, BetterHealth, if that was not the name of that one, but BetterHelp, but they are doing a lot to reach students, whether it's on campus once we return, virtually, and also too, if neither of those work, they can refer you out to somewhere. So there's always mental health counseling, and then also too on the other side, just counseling in academic resources, counseling and financial aid. I personally service the business and management students. And I'm always following up with them on their academic plans and making sure that they are en route to graduate in their timeline that they wanted. So never feel that when you have time, feel like you should go and, do it all yourself. There are individuals to help you and have a game plan for you. You don't have to do this alone.
Angie, could you speak a bit to how, as a student, you hear about these services or how you have interacted with some of them?
Absolutely. So, like Ashley said, during the pandemic, it has opened a lot of the mental health services that we have through telehealth, and just has made counseling really accessible with that regards. It is important to keep in mind, and one of the things that had kept me so hesitant to accessing it was well, my school will know that I am accessing their mental health services, and that got me really nervous because oh, well, what will my institution think? That is kept absolutely confidential. That is completely apart from your institution. Your institution does not know. even though it is a program within your institution, they are separate from each other, and there's literally no reason why you have to fear accessing the mental health services that your school's providing, because it is a resource and it's a good one to take advantage of. As far as other types of counseling, a lot of them have career and development services. So if you're kind of confused as to like what you want to do with your job, you can attend a lot of workshops that they have, meet with counselors one-on-one. You still have counselors in college. You can still go to them and ask them any types of questions. And they're also a little bit more niche. So I'm an international studies student and a geography student. So I have advisors both within the international studies school and the Department of Geography, and they both can provide you all sorts of different insights, whether you want to go more in depth into a field of study or not. And it's important to just keep in mind that those are also resources that you have in university.
Excellent, excellent points. Okay, next question. Can you give some tips on how to get the most out of financial aid? Who would like to take that one first? Barb?
Sure. With financial aid, first of all, I would say the main thing is that everybody plan on actually filling out the FAFSA in the first place. We have a huge number of students that don't because they might be concerned. Well, they'd have various concerns, but often I talk to families who think that they're not going to qualify for financial aid. And the truth is, everyone qualifies for some level of financial aid. Whether it's good aid or not so good aid, you aren't going to find out until you actually fill out your FAFSA and get that information back from different universities. So more than anything, I would encourage people to fill out their FAFSA. And then also trying to make a connection with a college's financial aid office, and speaking with someone, trying to build a relationship with one of their financial aid counselors can really go a long way to helping them get to know you, get to know some of your specific situations and information, and then they can do their best with trying to help you through that process and pinpoint types of aid or potential scholarships or things like that. So those would be my suggestions.
Couple real quick points. First of all, if you're going to community college or to trade school, fill out the FAFSA. You can still get financial aid through both of those opportunities as well. The next one is to start looking for scholarships. And there are a lot of different ways you can do that. If you go to our website, you'll actually see our scholarship video that'll give you really good tips. But anyway, mainly what you want to do is talk to your high school counselor and see what kind of local scholarships are available. And there are also a lot of scholarship websites that you can go to that will actually generate scholarships that you should apply to. So there are a lot of different ways to go for financial aid. Bobby?
And even the schools that you're looking at attending, while you're getting familiar with the financial aid counselor, most school websites, the schools that you're thinking about going to, will give you some scholarship resources. And students, start looking for scholarships yesterday. I mean, because, I deal with a lot of incoming freshmen now that are so busy trying to finish up their senior year, they're like, I don't really have time to look for scholarships. So as soon as you can, start looking for scholarships. Now, remember, if you just Google college scholarships, you're going to get 1 million hits. So I always recommend the students that I work with about 70 high schools in Colorado. I work with the states of Missouri, Kansas, and Arizona. I tell my students to start with your high school counselor. It's an invaluable resource. They will help you narrow down, like Margaret said, local and national scholarships. But I'm talking to a lot of students now who are not even familiar with what their in-house school has to offer. And so I always tell them to start with your high school counselor, and then, start looking for those outside scholarships, especially if you're trying to go out of state, where in-state could be $25,000 for you and your family, $50,000 to go out of state. So if you're looking at that, start your scholarship search early. Talk to your friends that are in college and what their scholarship search was. Talk to parents. Maybe your parent or family member's job has scholarship opportunities based on where they work. Start talking about scholarships earlier the better and looking for scholarships, because like all well students and families, finding the money. You always hear about all this money out there, but finding the money is like a full or part-time job. So it takes some work on your effort of, filling out applications. You may have to have letters of rec, but start with your high school counselor and they'll help you kind of with your search opportunities and ideas.
Exactly. Angie.
Also, it's important to keep in mind that once you're actually in college or a trade school or community college, you can still reapply. And well, actually, a lot of the times your institution requires you to renew your FAFSA every year. So keeping up with that, maybe you might be able to get more aid in the next year. And there's just a lot of scholarships that renew annually and others that don't. So it's important that you keep your eyes on that.
Watch your email when you get into college, because you will get notices that say apply for the school's scholarships. And if you miss the window, you're out of luck. There are a number of scholarships that allow you to apply when you're a freshman or a sophomore in high school. Just last week on Good Morning America, they gave away $40,000 to a bunch of students. Each student got $40,000, but they were all juniors in high school. So it is possible. You just have to work at it and look for your resources in everything you do from now until you die. Look for your resources. There are people out there who want to help you.
Can I just give a quick additional plug to that scholarship video on Nest to Wings YouTube channel? That video, like at my high school, we do a scholarship presentation, and it's about an hour long, and almost everything that we cover in that is condensed down to about 12 minutes in that video. So it's a great place to start with how to look for scholarships.
Excellent. Thank you. Bobby.
And one more quick thing. Don't discount the $500 scholarships. Don't discount the $300 scholarships. They may pay for your books for that semester. So yes, it's worth the time. So I think the students that put the time in to look for those scholarships, they get a lot of the scholarships. And so don't discount the small ones. Maybe it's $100, but every little bit helps, when you're paying for college.
And it's $100 you didn't have last week, so go for it. Excellent. Let's go for our next question. How important is the SAT score for a good school if you have a 4.0 grade point average? Sawyer, you want to start with that one? And then we'll go to Bobby.
Yeah. So, man, so many layers to this particular question. If it was not easy to answer 1 year ago, it is certainly even more difficult to answer now. What I would say is first of all, I think a lot of this is personalized to what you define as a, in quotes, good school. Because I think that majority of the university and colleges across the globe are good schools and they can give you a solid education. So I assume that this is maybe talking about maybe a more competitive school. That's where I'm going to reframe this in for admission wise. Generally speaking, high school transcripts and GPAs are going to be the most important thing, looking at grade trends. So how have your grades evolved over the past several years, looking at particular subjects. Do you have C's? Well, where are those C's? Are they only in math? Okay, well, are you trying to be a math major? Are you trying to be, an art history major? There's flexibility and nuance in a lot of that. With the SAT, it really depends on the school, especially with all the test optional and test blind movements kind of happening right now. Will they stay that way? Will they continue? They've already been in existence for a long time at a lot of institutions that are good schools. But I would say that your transcript is always going to be more important than the SAT. And as far as how important is the SAT, that really gets into like the nitty gritty of each individual admissions office. And it's a great email or phone call to connect with an admission counselor to ask them about. So that way you get your information from their policy, but also you show that you care and that you're proactive and you're demonstrating interest, and your name might actually become one that sticks in the admission counselor's head, which can be a pretty good thing if it sticks there for the right reasons.
Bobby.
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Sawyer said about connecting with your admissions count. Because with this national trend of test optional, some schools are, not even going to look at your tests. At Colorado State University this year, we became test optional. And for us, that meant you didn't have to submit a SAT or ACT for admissions purposes or scholarship purposes. So definitely, we spend a lot of times, we go over your high school transcript like a fine tooth comb. We look at trends, as mentioned earlier. We look at a lot of information about you. And so a lot of places, if you have the opportunity to take that free SAT, if you live in the state of Colorado, you may want to go ahead and take that, because we're not sure what that outlook is going to be for fall 22 as far as the test optional piece. But talk to your admissions counselor. We're all here to help you. So contact the school, go to their website. You can see what their admissions criteria are. They'll give you the range for the ACT or SAT information. But you want to connect with your admissions counselor at that school, and they'll gladly talk to you about how they factor in the ACT or the SAT. And if schools are requiring the SAT, it is a factor in your admissions decision. And prior to this year, we used the SAT to describe it worked for admissions purposes, and we used it for scholarship purposes. But hopefully we're not going to go back there. We haven't got the official word, but we're hoping to be test optional for fall 22 and beyond.
Ashley, I know in California they are actually it's test blind, isn't it? They don't even request the tests
Yes.
in the California state system.
Mm-hmm.
So really there are kind of three categories. There's test blind, which means they won't look at your test score no matter what. It doesn't matter to them. They're not going to look at it. There's test optional, which is you got to figure out exactly how they're going to use it, or how they have to be able to tell you how they're going to use it. In most test optional, it's up to you on whether or not you provide your score, depending on how well you feel you did on the test, depending on whether or not you think it enhances your application. And the last one is test required, where there are still colleges out there that will require testing. I think with Bobby's answer, you all understand that colleges are trying to figure this out as they move forward. The pandemic made ACT and SAT less accessible to a lot of students. As we come out of that in the next year, how is that going to look? So be sure and put that on your list of questions for your admissions counselor and look on their website, because that information is going to be critical in how you move forward. Now, you may still have a high school that requires you to take the SAT. Go ahead and do it. Do your best on it, and hopefully it will serve you well.
So, and I had recently heard too that there's a fourth testing classification called test flexible, where they may ask for other tests instead of SAT or ACT. Like perhaps if you've taken AP tests or IB tests or those sorts of things, and want to submit those scores, that's another possible thing that students will run into.
We aren't going to tell you whether or not you should take the test. You're going to have to figure that out based on your circumstances. So spend some time talking to your high school counselor, spend some time talking to the admissions counselors at every school that you're thinking about applying to, and then make the decision that works best for you. Okay, next question. How much debt is too much for college? Anybody want to jump in on that one?
I'll talk really quick about kind of, once again, this could be an entire video or essay or thesis or any number of things. I think that when I worked with students in admissions and when I work with them now, one of the things that I really try and emphasize is that for a lot of students, taking out student loans can be just kind of the cost of doing business. That doesn't mean that I'm encouraging you to take out a lot of student loans. I'm not encouraging you to take out private loans really ever. I would never suggest that personally to any of my students and families. But I will say, like, I came from, like I said, first generation, single parent, low income. And like my choice was, some loans or not the school that I really felt was the right fit for me. And so generally, if a family's going to take loans, I ask them to never take more than the full student loans. So like the unsubsidized and the subsidized Stafford loans, which generally will be around $5,500, depending on what your financial aid might look like. But that's my general ruling, is that I think student loans get a really bad rap, but loans at the end of the day are tools. And just like if you grab a hedge trimmer and start swinging it around in the air and you don't know how to use a tool properly, you can end up putting yourself in a pretty bad spot. So be smart and do research and understand what you're getting into. But ultimately, I think that it's one of those things where you can take out some student loans as long as they're not overly burdensome. And how much is that? That's a conversation you probably need to think about with your family and your parents or your guardians, whomever might be with you.
I was reading somewhere, it was about 6 months ago, that the average college debt, the average loan due back after you graduate from college is about $27,000-$28,000, which means that for all those people who are taking nothing, there's a whole lot of people who are taking a whole lot. You have to figure out, one of the things you want to do is to talk to people who are in the field you think you want to go into and say, what is an average salary? Once you know kind of where your salary is going to be, then you can walk it back and say, okay, how much can I live off of? Because you have to live after you graduate. You can't just pay back taxes or pay back your loans. So figure out exactly how much you can afford in that debt with a payment schedule. And you can talk to a banker and sit down and say, help me understand how this works. They'll be happy to walk you through it, although you'll need to decide whether or not you want to take a private loan versus a federal loan versus a private organization loan. There are a lot of private organizations out there that do provide loans, or talk to employers or your parents' employers, because a lot of times you can work out loans through them as well. But you've got to figure out what your debt ratio is going to be. Ashley?
Great points. Another point that I wanted to just mention is that on the FAFSA website, you can now track where you're at as well. So a lot of students, unfortunately, that I've encountered sometimes are like, they're seniors now in college, and they say, hold up, I'm this much. And as a financial aid coordinator and a student services coordinator, I've always given that heads up to students. Track that, know exactly where you're at. We're asking you to, of course, focus on your academics and all your extracurriculars. But when you're in college, always being mindful of checking your FAFSA website, because that's what's going to tell you, this term I've got so much of direct student loans, so much Pell Grants, and then you can see that and you can always know. So when you feel like, hey, that is too much debt for me personally, you know where you're at and you can make your decision, divert your game plan, and go from there.
Bobby.
A quick personal story. When I was in graduate school, I was offered a loan for $10,000. And I knew I could probably live with all my expenses on $5,000. But the first generation person in me, not really knowing, not really talking to a lot of people. And then I think the person was saying it's only at 2%. And so I checked the box for the 10,000. In hindsight, I didn't need the 10,000 because it was on the table. I wish I would have took the 5,000 and been fine. So that 2% interest, that almost no interest kind of enticed me. But in hindsight, later, now after working at colleges and universities now for 30 years, there's a lot of hindsight things that I've learned. And so think about me. If they're offering you $10,000 and you really can make it with the $5,000, if you are going to decide to take a loan, I'm not advocating taking a loan, but if you think you can live with less of a loan, because remember, they start knocking on your door to want their money back 6 months. Is it 6 months still after you graduate? There's somebody knocking on your door saying it's time to pay back those loans. So that's a personal story I just wanted to share with you.
That's a really good point, Bobby, because it's not just the amount of money you take. It's the interest. And one of the things you also need to ask about is how are they compounding that interest and making sure you understand how that works. It will not just be $10,000 you're paying back. So figure that out from the beginning, and that will help motivate you when it comes time to pay it back.
So, and Bobby, you brought up a great point about, you were offered so much loan, And I think that's one of the things that scares a lot of students and parents is that you're going to be offered these loans and you have to take it all out, or is it all or nothing? And that's a great way to validate that you don't have to take out all the loan money that is offered to you. Okay, so don't be afraid. Like when you're given a promissory note with a dollar amount on it, you decide the dollar amount of that loan.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, let's go on to our next question. What is the biggest difference between high school and college classes? Angie, why don't you start with that one since you've got it more freshly in your head than we do?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, variety, because when you're in high school, you're trying to get through that common curriculum. And depending on your institution, yes, you will have to go through that common curriculum too. But within that, you can access a lot more variety in the terms of classes that you take. Like when you're in science in high school, generally you get like, oh, environmental science, maybe biology, chemistry, physics, just your general. But there's also like geology classes or like some core sediment classes that specifically look at specific microbes, and you can just go into so much sorts of depths within different topics. You can access a lot more languages, again, depending on your institution, where in high school, a lot of the times you're kind of just stuck learning Spanish or maybe French if you're lucky, if your school offers it, where in college you can learn Russian or Arabic or whatever. I think that just like the variety and the options of learning about so many other different topics is great. Another big difference is homework. Homework, you have to put in at least 2 hours for every hour you're in class. At least that's a rule that I made for myself. And that's worked out pretty well for me. It seems like a lot, but it's really not a lot because you have your day split out into different sections and you're not going class to class to class to class to class for 8 hours straight. You may have different types of break in between there. You may have a 10 a.m. class and that's it for a day. You might not have a class at all in one day and then 3 classes on another day. So your schedule is really a lot more flexible to work with the homeworks that you have. And yeah, I think that flexibility and being able to take time to do other things is one of the biggest differences between college classes and high school classes.
Ashley, what's your perspective?
I think Angie was spot on. A lot of her points were very accurate. I think something else for me is you really have to hold yourself accountable now, right? And so in high school, we're living under mom and dad's roof still, and so we have to go to high school. But here, whether you're out of state, going to an institution out of state, or even if you're still living at home but going to college, you kind of have to keep yourself motivated because just like Angie had mentioned, you might have a 10 a.m. class and then a long break. And so you're like, what am I going to do now in front of in this time span of my next class coming on at 4 o'clock, right? Utilize that time to study, stay motivated. If you are on campus, check out things that are happening, like any kind of interview skills workshops or any workshop that is on campus or virtually right now. Check those out. But I think the biggest difference is really just making sure that you're holding yourself accountable now, really.
Yes, Angie. Angie, I'm sorry.
Yes, no, you're totally fine. One thing I also forgot to mention that Ashley reminded me of, your classrooms are going to be a lot more diverse. There will, in terms of age, in terms of individuals, that's one of the biggest shifts that I saw coming from Mead High School, which was a mostly white school where I was used to being like the only brown person in there, to like here where I actually see some diversity. To be fair, my university is more white than any other group, but still I see individuals who are 28 in some of my classes. Sometimes I have a 16-year-old prodigy who's in my classroom too. So there's just a lot of differences in that too, and your classrooms are more diverse.
Mm-hmm. And learn from that too. I think that is what I loved going to college classes and just my experience working at a university right now is that you never know what you can learn and how you can support each other. So don't let that phase you. It's going to be a different environment, but really go into it with an open mind. My personal thing too is, if you can, sit in front of the lecture halls, because it can be a big lecture hall, and in the back, it's probably not going to be the most attentive students. And so sit in the front too, make those friends, because that's going to be your support group as well. No matter the age, no matter the background, make those connections, and that'll help you get through those classes.
Yes, Bobby.
I think they refer to that sitting in the T zone of a class. The T zone would be right across the front, and then if you're sitting toward the back, maybe sit closer to the aisle, so almost to forming a T. And then you might have to, it took me a while to discover as a college student what time of day that I retain the most information. I always thought it was at night, basically, probably going to high school all day, then you study in the evening. But in college, I realized I do a lot better in a quiet environment in the middle of the day. So I had to rethink how I even studied when I was in college versus high school. And so I found out that I'm a library studier. So if you need a quiet environment, the library is an excellent place at a college campus to go. Back in the corner. And I found that I retained the most information probably from about probably 10 to 2 was where I retained a lot of information. So I was able to actually do better in that 10 to 2 versus trying to study from 6 to 10. So think about that in your own study of how you retain information. If you need a quiet place, sometimes your residence hall is not the quietest place to study. Find the library on a college campus.
Excellent, excellent. The other thing you will find if you're in high school right now, start figuring out how you study. How do you learn? Bobby talked about the time of day, but I have known many, many, many high school students who have gotten into college and realized they never learned how to study. High school for them was something easier. It was different in the way the information was presented, and they kind of they walked into a little bit of a wall when they got to college. So start now in high school. How do you take notes? How do you review those notes? How do you study for tests? All of that is something that you can spend some time on, and I know your counselors would be happy to help you with that. Another thing I would tell you, and this may be the mom in me, but I really do believe it's important, go to class. You are paying thousands of dollars to sit in those chairs. Put your rear end in one of them. It's really, really important. And I have a number of my children who have said, oh, it's a class of 200. Nobody will ever know. Yes, they do. Professors are not silly. TAs are not silly. They recognize what's happening. And if you show that level of intent, it will come back to you. I promise it will. I know as we move into fall 2022, there are still going to be a little bit of a change in how college is operating, just as there will be in high school. I think you're still going to see a number of online classes going into 2022 2021 and 22. So please, if you are tired of online classes, you need to find a way to reboot yourself, because the chances are pretty good that you're going to end up with some online classes in your college career. Okay. Yeah, Barb.
Just to add on a little bit to that, like when I talk to a lot of high school students, I really encourage them to recognize what all of their resources are. Our high school students are often in the mindset that, oh, I need to take care of this myself, and they want to be an independent learner, and so they're often reticent about asking for help from their teachers or from other people and that sort of thing. And the more you can ask for help or recognize what your resources are, the more successful you're going to be. So we spend a lot of time trying to get that point across, and so I'll often recommend to students, if you do have friends that you study well with, form a study group, check in with your teachers. In college, that translates into talking with your professors during office hours. Maybe going to visit a past teacher, like if you're not doing well in your current math class and you're not quite sure that you are getting it from your current teacher, maybe a former teacher can help you. So there's just so many options for resources that a lot of high school students don't necessarily think about are available to them. You just have to reach out.
Excellent. Angie, and then we'll go to
Last
Bobby.
point. Yes, last point that I will make too. In high school, all your classes are sort of in the same building. In college, they are not. I have had to run from one edge of the campus to the other to get to class on time. So make sure that you plan your schedule because you do move around a lot and college campuses are big and they have a lot of buildings. So pro tip, look at your campus, look at where your classes are going to be maybe a couple of days before classes start so that you can make pathways and your own routes to get to class on time.
Excellent. Bobby?
Also, if you're living on a college campus, your first line for resources on that campus would be your resident assistant. If you're living in a residence hall, you have that resident assistant who's trained on all the resources on campus. Maybe you're not feeling comfortable enough to go to your teacher's or your professor's class, but I want you to work on that. Work on going to your professor's office hours, stepping out of your comfort zone. And don't wait, because a lot of times professors, they have office hours. They're only busy doing midterms and finals. But your professors are a wealth of information. I used to do a lot of career advising. So students would come to talk to me about careers. If they had talked to me, I kept a note about them so I knew what they were looking for. So reach out to your professors, talk to your resident assistants. If you're not getting help from your resident assistant on your floor, there's a resident assistant on every floor. They're right there with you. They're a current student. Maybe they're a year older than you, but they are trained to know all the resources on campus. So if you are living in a residence hall or a dormitory, start your first line, talk to your resident assistant to help you get connected to the resources that are going to help you.
Excellent. Okay, let's see what our next question is. Is financial aid available for trade schools? Barb, you want to start that one?
A big yes to that. As a matter of fact, trade schools, community colleges, along with universities, they all go through the FAFSA process, or the large bulk of them do have access to financial aid process through the federal government. So, I mean, there are schools that have to qualify to be able to access that process. And sometimes there are private trade schools and that sort of thing that may not use the FAFSA process, but by and large, the bulk of them do and will. So, so yes, make sure that you check out any trade school websites, community college websites to find. All of them will have a financial aid tab on their website, and you can certainly call them and ask them what their process is.
Exactly, and there are scholarships available. There is money available for trade school, community college, any of these. You are going to have to do the work. That's just part of the game. But when you're in a trade school, the other thing you can do is ask whether or not they have apprenticeship programs or some kind of internship program that may be paid as well. So you might be able to even work within the field you want to go into as you're learning the field. So ask those questions and figure out what's best for you. That whole question of how do I expand my knowledge so that I can move forward with my life can be done at a trade school, a community college, or at a four-year institution.
Yeah, one last note on that is that when your high school counselor talks about college, trade schools are included in that word. Okay. I mean, most people think about just college being university or the typical college experience. And your high school counselor, I mean, that's a word we kind of use to cover a lot of aspects. But trade schools and community colleges and even apprenticeships and military, after high school, you're going to face some sort of training. And there's a lot of times where we lump that into the word college. So don't think that we're only talking about a narrow university situation. It's bigger than that.
Excellent. It's our shorthand, and it's probably not as long as you understand that, it can be very useful to you.
Right.
Okay, great. Next question. How important is being in the Honor Society? Most honor societies require 30 plus hours of volunteering. Is that important? Bobby, you want to start there?
Well, what we find when students are applying to college, they feel they have to be a member of the National Honor Society. If you're passionate about what the Honor Society is offering you, go ahead and be a member of the Honor Society. And they do have requirements. And so, but don't feel like, I often see a trend too of people thinking I'm about to apply for college. So now I have to start taking honors classes, AP classes, IB classes, and they haven't really sprinkled them in along the way. But I'm going to take two honors and an AP because that looks good for college reps. If you've had some success in honors classes or IB, AP, and we determine success at the AB level. Yes, you may have a couple C's, but don't feel like just because you have to be in it. If you like what the Honor Society is offering you, if you're passionate about it, you know there's going to be a little extra work, get involved with the Honor Society. But it's not just like a 4-year college thing that you have to be a member of the Honor Society. We have honors programs that you can apply to at the 4-year university. They're very competitive, academic rigorous. So don't feel like all of a sudden I have to do these honor societies. If you've been involved and you want to be, you're passionate about it, get involved. But we don't want you to get involved with honors or take a lot of honors classes, AP, IB. I'm lumping them all together, dual enrollment, and you're making C's and D's. That's not a good look on your high school transcript. And so that's my 2 cents. I know some other folks have some information about honor societies.
Sawyer, what do you think?
Right. So I think the question that I would, if a student asked me this, my first thought would be, what did you do in the Honor Society? Because NHS on an activities list in the Common App, that means very little to me. And that's not like a downtrodden way to step on what you've been working on, but I want to know what you did. And if you are in Honor Society and you're doing 30 hours of volunteering and you're loving it and you're enjoying it and it feels fulfilling and you're volunteering at all these different things, good. Feed that info to me. I want to know all of that good info. If you're in NHS because you meet like once a month during lunch and nobody really even knows why they're in it and nobody does anything with it, then you can put it on an accolades or like a brag sheet or your activities list. But put it towards the bottom and put your things that are, really descriptive or your heavy hitters or the things you're really engaged in. Put those at the top. So it's not completely worthless by any means, but it's a lot more about what you do with that extracurricular than the actual extracurricular itself.
One of the things I keep hearing people say, and I'll come right back to you, Angie, is that they want to see growth in your activities. It isn't just, hey, I have this and this and this and this. They want to see, are you taking on leadership positions? Are you doing something in that organization? If you can do that within Honor Society, great. There are a lot of really good National Honor Societies out there that really do bring in speakers and help you better understand what's going on in a different aspect of the world. But more important, do you show them who you are. By being involved and moving ahead with what you're doing. That's also the way you're going to figure out whether or not this is really what you want to do when you get to college or when you get beyond college. Angie?
Maybe as an alternative student perspective in the moment, sometimes volunteering and being involved in those types of societies are a really great way to be accepted or looked into when you're trying to get involved with certain groups or clubs when you're in university. Like in sorority life and Greek life, we sometimes look that you have some background with community service and volunteering, and a lot of other groups and clubs around campus do too. And if that's something that's important to you, just having that as a kind of support system to say hey, I was involved in this and service is something that is important to me, then that's a big thumbs up for those types of groups on campus.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Okay, let's go on to our next question. What is the most important thing to do in high school for me to be attractive to colleges? Sawyer, we'll let you have this one first.
Yeah. First of all, kind of like I said, grades. Really, really important. It for me and almost every college, admission office that I visited or worked with, always first grades. That doesn't mean you have to have 100s. It doesn't mean you have to have a miserable high school experience because you're stressed and overworked and undersleeping. It just means that from the time you start high school till the time you graduate high school, you need to make sure that your academic qualities and academic prowess is on full display, because admission officers are going to look at all 4 years, first of all. And transcripts are going to be the best indicator for your success in further education. So that I think is the most important thing. There's the list is endless as far as other things to do. Demonstrate interest. Visit a college. If you can't visit a college, set up a one-on-one conversation with your admission counselor. Do a virtual visit. COVID has brought us a lot of opportunities there. Obviously get involved in extracurriculars, but you don't have to be involved in everything. And certainly find those things that really jive with you and who you are and who you want to be, and run with them. And don't be afraid to be authentic and to just be yourself. That is, I think, maybe one of the most important things I tell students pretty frequently is, the last thing an admission counselor wants to read in an application is what you think an admission counselor wants to read in an application, which just sounds a little roundabout, but like, I want to read who you are. Like, I want to hear an authentic story. I want to find out what's your narrative. What are your passions? I want you to explain the hows and whys of when you're getting involved in things. That's all really important. But I mean, grades, some amount of involvement in your community or in your school or in your life in general, and some show of interest, whether it's just reaching out or whether it's saying, hey, I really like this school, I want to come here. I mean, like, any amount that shows that you actually care about what you're doing at this very moment. And the list could go on and on and on, but I really think if you just follow those passions and get involved in something that you actually want to be a part of, those grades need to be good. And then, just actually putting effort into the college search, and you will be attractive to, the vast majority of colleges and universities in the world. So that would be my 2 cents.
Bobby?
Sawyer mentioned this tool earlier, the Common Application. Hopefully you all have known of this, have heard of this tool. This is one application accepted by 900 plus schools around the U.S., around the world. And on that Common App, some places the only way to apply. Colorado State University, we used to have 2 applications. We dropped our other in-house application, and we only accept the Common Application now for incoming students. And so now that we don't have to receive your ACT or SAT, there's something on the Common App called Academic Explanation, or something that you want to share. So yes, you have to do a personal statement or college essay. Some schools may want 1, some schools may want 2. If your school only wants 1, there's something else on there called Academic Explanation. You can use that to tell us more about you, your authentic self, why you're thinking about that major, why you're thinking about, said school. But just be careful in the Common App, because you can't say, like we often get, I've always, they're using the Common App personal statement. They'll write on the essay that I've always wanted to attend the University of Colorado, and then they send that information to Colorado State University. So showing some interest in your school, of course, but get connected, because Sawyer also talked about something called demonstrated interest. We measure that. We want to know, have you reached out to us? We want to know if you attended an actual on-campus event pre-pandemic, or maybe you've attended a virtual event. So we have a way of tracking. We can even see if you're opening up our emails. And so when you look at it, say if I'm looking at 2 students to admit, I've sent them both 25 emails, one student's opened up 15, one student's opened up 5. Who's really more interested in me just based on those numbers alone? So we do measure demonstrated interest, be your authentic self. And I think now we saw a lot more applications. I think the average number of applications for fall 21, but I don't know, it used to be under 10. Now I think it's closer to 15 schools that you're applying to. So students, we know that you're not interested in all 15, but the top 3 or 5 that you're interested in, do your due diligence, contact the school, visit the school if you can. And so that shows that you're attractive, that you at least are thinking about us based on your own action. Reach out to your admissions counselors. I'm doing Zoom meetings almost every day with prospective students and families. I have quite a few phone calls, but we'll gladly, as an admissions person, this is what I've been doing for 15 years. We want to talk to you about our university, our school, and everything that we require of you. So reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to your admissions counselor. No matter what school you go to the website and find out who your admissions counselor is. Reach out to them and have a conversation.
Barb, what do you think?
I agree with everything that they've had to say, and I think one of the things, and I'd like to hear from Ashley on this one too, but one of the things that I would encourage students to think about is their purpose in going to college. Using your high school activities to get a sense of what you like and what you're looking forward to, and being able to kind of demonstrate that in your essays and that sort of thing. It's not 100% necessary, because again, we're not asking you to have your life planned as you leave high school. Okay. And I certainly didn't have my major settled on when I started college. But the more you have a sense of, gee, I like helping people, or I seem to be enterprising, or those things, having some of that you illustrate as you put your application together can really be helpful for colleges in terms of knowing how they might fit you and you might fit them.
Ashley?
Everyone has had such great points today. Yes, I think my 2 cents would be your authentic self. It's going to show through your essays. My past institutions that I've worked at, we even look at that as potential scholarship opportunities. Even if you don't have a major in line, or kind of like I want to be a doctor, and I've wanted to be a doctor since 5 years old. But if you're like, hey, I want to make an impact somehow, I've got a passion, we see that, and if you work with your high school counselors, or peers, or your parents, anything like that, to make your aspirations and just your motivation shine through these admissions, personal statements, and application as a whole, the counselors are going to see that, and that's going to make all the difference.
Angie, what do you think?
The most important thing, well, I think that, like Ashley pointed out, a lot of the things that make you be attractive to colleges also make you attractive to different types of scholarships. That's something that's really important to keep in mind, and to not necessarily think of them as separate entities, because a lot of the times they will go hand in hand. I think also just showing a commitment to your community, that was something that I think a lot of people and a lot of institutions keep in mind, especially scholarships, and when you're applying for local scholarships too, that kind of work for each other. So keep in mind that what makes you attractive to colleges also makes you attractive to scholarships.
Excellent. My only 2 cents would be, don't give up on yourself and don't beat up on yourself. If you had a rough first semester in high school, but you're taking off after that, that is what college admissions officers are going to look at, that you were able to stop yourself in that moment and turn yourself around and move forward. Same is true with activities. Well, I'm a sophomore and I haven't done anything. So what? Get up and do something. So don't ever give up on yourself. There are not a million people out there who are better at everything than you. Do you move forward and challenge yourself? Figure out what you need to do to be better at who you are and who you want to be, and that will shine through. Just don't let yourself talk yourself into being less than you are, because you're all very worthwhile. So at this point, what I'd like to do is give a real quick little goodbye because I'm going to leave and we're going to invite a new person on with our panel. So our panel will stay here. But I do want to point out a couple things. First of all, From Nest to Wings is here to answer your questions and to help you. If there's a topic that you think we need to do a video on, please contact us. We've got over 60 videos out there right now. If you go on our website, you'll see a button you can push, and it'll give you the list of every one we've already done, and they're all linked. So you can just go right in there and start hitting it and seeing them. They're shorter videos for the most part, and they're all very, very helpful. The one I will tell you that you all need to spend time with is the one on stress. We have a counselor who actually walks you through and teaches you how to de-stress yourself, how to stop yourself in that moment and take more control. It is amazing. So all of those videos are out there. We also have some written documents that'll help you. If you're going on an admission search, it tells you, hey, what do I need to check off for each university that's important? Take a look at that, adapt it for you, all of those things. A glossary of college terms. How helpful could that be? Use that. And the last service I'll tell you about that is actually one of my favorites is our monthly newsletter, and you can sign up for that through our website. We have a woman who is editing that for us who has an amazing viewpoint on life, and the things that she puts in there are really, really good, and they will help you think beyond just what you're told in this little box. This is what I have to be by anybody who's out there telling you. So please go to our website and utilize those resources. Thank you all for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to our board president, the From Nest to Wings board president, Mary Peterson.
Thanks, Margaret. I'm so pleased to have these panelists. They were just awesome with great advice, and we're just blessed that they spend their time with us, and all of you that are on the live stream. And to all of you on the live stream, congratulations to yourself for spending some time worthwhile in learning and listening. So I would like to just give each panelist a few minutes to give their final comments or ideas they thought up with or a question they made up that they think needs to be answered. So Mr. Bobby Browning.
Okay. I just want to say, students and families, thanks for being here today. You know, we're preaching to the choir because you guys take the time on a Saturday to connect with us. So you're definitely interested in this topic. You're going to be fine. Really lock into the Nest to Wings resources. If you have questions about a 2-year school, if you have questions about a trade school or a 4-year school, reach out to someone assigned. You know, your admissions counselor, they'll help you. They'll answer a lot of your questions. But stay connected, use these resources, use the folks on the panel to reach out. And so in closing, I work at Colorado State University, just right up the road. Colorado State, we've been around for 150 years. We do education very well. And so if you have questions about Colorado State University, let me know, whether I'm your admissions counselor or not. Let me know, and I'll get you in contact with the right person who maybe represents Meek College. Angie, you know, we have somebody assigned to Meek also. But students, thanks for being here today. We do appreciate you all spending some time with us today. And share this information. Because I was a first-generation student. And me and my friends, maybe you have a friend that's not involved with Nest to Wings that could use some of this wonderful resources and information. So share this information with your friends, because we know we're all trying to figure it out together. And what a way to really share what you learned, other than connected with maybe one of your friends that's not connected to Nest to Wings, or not who you know doesn't have that college support. But again, thanks for being here today.
Bobby, thank you. And those are all good, wise words of wisdom as usual. Angie?
Yes, so first of all, I really commend you all for being here on a Saturday afternoon. It really shows that you're taking the steps necessary to get to your goals. I want to talk a little bit about like an experience that you might be nervous about, given that you were just in a pandemic and your classes has been all online, and the idea of like making friends or how you're going to make connections seems really daunting. I want you to know that it's completely and totally okay to just reach out to people that do say in class or via Zoom that they say something interesting, or that you are like, oh, I watched that too. Like, send them a private message, and then maybe you guys can go out and get coffee later, obviously social distance and following quarantine protocols. But you will meet friends where you don't expect throughout colleges, whether it be in your residence halls, in your classrooms, And regardless of where you are, I know that it's really scary just because of what this past this year and a half have been like. Don't be afraid to reach out to other people. Don't lose that humanity to you, and you will be fine.
Great advice, Angie. Thanks again for being on. Mr. Sawyer.
I am not muted now. I was just saying, obviously, thank all of you for joining us, and anybody who might watch this afterwards. I know as a 17-year-old going through the college search, I would not be watching this on a Saturday. So I commend all of you. I have enough self-awareness to realize that I wouldn't be here. The thing I really want to talk about, there's so much out there in the world of education, but a lot of people ask me, like, why did I transition from admissions to like doing my own business and my own independent college consulting? And one of the things I really want to emphasize to everybody watching this is that the college search and application, wherever that might take you, is really important. Going to trade school or further education or college, university, community college, whatever it might look like, really important. But I would challenge all of you to not see that as the end goal of this process. I think the reason that I switched over, and it really is part of how I work with students, is I think that the college search is an ideal moment in your life to be self-reflective, to be introspective, to grow as a person. And you can do all of that during the college search as well. And I think that that's something that sometimes gets lost. But we talk about being authentic. And if you aren't sure what that means, I would encourage you to spend some time with yourself and think about, who am I? Like, what is authenticity to me? What am I passionate about? What are these things I'm interested in? You don't have to know all the answers. You never will know all the answers. None of us do. But what I would ask is take this opportunity to grow as a person, not just getting ready to go to college, because this is such a great moment where you're going to be forced to be introspective and reflective about your life and your choices. So if you're already there, take some time and really, grow as a person, develop those really great skills, your critical thinking or your communication skills or your agency or your independence, whatever it might be. Make this more than just a college search. That would be my challenge that I would issue to all of you.
Barb?
Thanks, Mary, and thank you to all the parents and students who are joining us today. The fact that you are here will certainly make my job somewhat easier, so thank you. And kind of to add on what everybody else has been saying, reaching out is important, and having this shared experience, and to make sure that you're reaching out to your school counselor. I know we're busy people, but we are here for you, and so we certainly want to do whatever we can to help you. Beyond that, one of the things, or a couple of things that I would really like to emphasize for people is building your experiences in high school. Life is full of experiences, and the only way that you can really get to know yourself better is to challenge yourself with different experiences. And high schools are trying to develop more and more opportunities for students to take advantage of different things, trying different things, different career-based learning, et cetera, and so on. So the more that you can take advantage of what your school has to offer, do so, because this is the time in your life where you can do that for free. And beyond high school, you're going to end up having to pay for it. So anything you can do to take advantage and build those experience. And the other thing is just for everybody to know that you have so many options available to you. There is not one way to do anything. And throughout life, you will probably find that you do pivot from maybe one area of occupation to another area, et cetera, and so on. just know that there's not one way to do anything. And naturally, as you're looking at colleges and educational options, your high school counselor is there to talk those things through with you, and as we all are. So thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Ashley?
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to say my thanks as well to everyone that's tuning in and to the rest of the panelists. I think this was such an amazing Q&A today. I guess my piece of advice would be to give yourself some grace. This is going to be it can be a stressful time. We have a lot of options. We talked about financial aid. We talked about so many things in this hour today. And I know it can be overwhelming, but just remember that it will work out if you just put your mind to it. We're all on our own journey as well. So don't compare yourself to maybe what your friends are at in their journey. You know, college admissions also offer so many different acceptance time frames, right? So if you're seeing a friend who has gotten their acceptance yet, do not worry. You know, it's just different timings. So just make sure to take care of yourself as well, taking care by your self-care practices, any kind of rituals that you have, or just, you know, taking a break off, for taking a week off from applying, you know, and just making sure that this doesn't become too stressful of a situation. Going to college is so much fun, easily one of the best decisions I made. So take care and just keep going forward, because we're all in our own journey and we're all on different times for that.
That's correct. I want to share with all of you a couple observations to all the parents that are listening. I know as a parent myself, you have dreams of what your child should be or do and aspirations. And sometimes we try to live our lives through them of something maybe we didn't get to do. I highly encourage to really listen to your children. Let them be themselves, because if they go into something to make you happy, they will become miserable. And they're going to be afraid to share it with you because they don't want to let you down. And that can lead to a lot of variety of stress issues and even mental health issues if that happens. So take a deep breath. You know, I always said, as long as my kids were kind and helpful and inclusive of people and made enough to make a living, I'm happy. That's it. The other piece is that Sawyer mentioned, Sawyer's an entrepreneur, obviously. He started his own company. And if you get a chance at any continuing education you get to get an entrepreneurial certificate or take entrepreneurial classes, I think it's valuable for whatever you do. And our country is now becoming more entrepreneurs than ever before. So hats off to Sawyer for living a dream and doing that. But that's important. The third piece was that we talked a lot about being your authentic self. And that's hard to figure out. And Sawyer briefly commented on his ending comments, but it's just always allowing yourself to be who you are and be around people that allow you to be that. So think about the friends you have now, and do you put on a fake face to them? You don't have to do that. There's no like hierarchy like some high schools have. Here are the really popular kids, the middle kids, and the kids down here. In college, everybody's the same. There's no, you create your own chosen family, or you create your own friends, and that's a good thing, and that will enrich your life like you can't believe. In closing, I want to share some what I believe are motivational thoughts. If there were ever a time to dare to make a difference, to embark on something worth doing, it is now. For something that tugs your heart, something that's your aspiration, something that's your dream, you owe it to yourself to make your days here count. Have fun, dig deep, stretch, dream big. Know, though, that things worth doing seldom come easy. There will be good days, there will be times when you want to turn around, pack it up, and call it quits. Those times tell you that you are pushing yourself and that you're not afraid to learn by trying. Persist. Because with an idea, determination, and the right tools, you can do great things. Let your intellect and your instincts and your heart guide you. Trust. Believe in the incredible power of the human mind, of doing something that makes a difference, of working hard, of laughing and hoping, of lazy afternoons, of lasting friends, of all the things that will cross your path. The start of something new begins the hope of something great. Anything is possible. There is only one you, and you will pass this way only once. Do it right. I want to thank our panelists again. I want to encourage you to go to our website and see all of our resources that are free. As a board president, I have the duty to at least share with you, if you ever feel like donating to Nest of Wings, there's a little button on that website to help us out. We are so excited to have this nonprofit organization that can provide good education to make people feel better about themselves and where they're going. So may you all have a rest of a great weekend and the rest of your life. Thank you from Nest to Wings.